Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Westford Capital Planning Committee for Friday, November 7th, 2025. Just a reminder to all participating that this meeting is being recorded. First order of business today, we're going to go through capital requests for the March 28th, 2026 town meeting. We're going to start off with requests from the police department. So, Chief Chambers, I believe we have you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you. Sound great.
The police department's requesting $72,915 to purchase 6 new dual band portable radios. We have discovered over the past several months on mutual aid calls within our 3 communities that border us, Acton, Littleton, Groton, and the town that our officers go to court in and Air, operate on a different frequency than us. They're VHF, we are UHF. In order to be able to use our portables to communicate with their dispatch center when we're out of our cruisers, we need to be on a dual band radio system. So we've had several calls over the past couple months to these contiguous adjoining communities, where we run into some issues relaying information between our dispatch centers from officers on our portable. And it really has become an officer safety issue. We can speculate why we're being called to assist these towns more frequently than we used to. Just in the past year, we've been called to cover between Littleton, Acton, and Groton, an additional 20 calls for service. If an officer is on a domestic call, like we recently had over in Groton, once the officer steps out of the cruiser, we don't have the ability to speak directly to their dispatch center. And what happens is we have to relay information from our dispatch to their dispatch, which creates a delay, which can lead to officer safety. So what the proposal is to purchase 6 dual band radios. In emergency, they could be used here in Westford as well. The fire department has several in their roster. But what the goal would be is to have the officers that would normally be dispatched to those types of mutual aid calls have the ability to take these radios on patrol. So if we do get called over there, they have the ability to speak directly to those towns' dispatch centers if they have to leave the cruiser for any reason.
So, Chief, these don't replace current radios. They supplement so that when we go to that town, any of those towns, we still have access to our officers.
Yes, sir. We do
Perfect.
have the ability in our cruisers, but
Yeah,
and it had been fine because usually it's we're backing up a motor vehicle stop or short duration call. But what we found is if we're in a more involved call and an officer from one of those jurisdictions isn't able to free up, uh,
yeah,
it does become dangerous. You have an unnecessary delay in communications when we're outside of the cruiser. So
yeah.
we
Yeah, no,
do
that makes total sense.
yeah, we do expect the shelf life to last over 10 plus years, similar to
Great.
our current portables. I think we're in year 8 of our current portables. That when we purchased them, we actually planned for the digital transfer that occurred a couple of years ago. But as you can see from the request, these dual band radios are much more expensive than our single band radios.
Sure.
So when we made the switch, we didn't want to put a $500,000 bill on top to do the dual band for what we think we can address with just 6 radios.
No, we appreciate it. That makes total sense. Folks, any question for the chief on this one? I think it's pretty straightforward, but happy to go through. John, go ahead.
I just have a quick question, Chief. Thank you
Sure.
for your comments, and I can completely understand the need for these. But you said we've been called out, Westford's been called out on mutual aid calls several times in the past year. Do we have a need to call other communities very frequently?
Yes, sir. Occasionally we do, depending on the side of town. We can't speak directly with Tingsboro and Chelmsford along those sides of town if we request mutual aid from them or we respond to those communities. But within Middlesex County, there's a mutual aid pact, and we operate with a few more people on our shifts than say Littleton does. Our minimum staffing is 3 officers with 1 supervisor, where Littleton generally will have 2 to 3 officers on, so we usually have the extra person. But when we are in need, we do have the ability to call those other communities to come in.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Anybody else? Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask, does this provide any additional um, capability for within town as well, in like an emergency situation, power outage or anything like that, better coverage?
Well, it gives us additional portable radios that will work in town as well. So it does enhance our current abilities. So, you know, if we had additional people come in, we could issue those radios if we needed to.
Makes sense. Folks, anyone else?
I'm good, thanks.
Great. All right, Chief Chambers, that was terrific. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have
Get back to it. All right, thanks. All right, folks, we'll keep moving. Our next request comes from our own town manager. Kristen, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time this morning. This request is for a multi-year digitization effort for the town files. For year one, which would start at fiscal 27, we are asking for $100,000 to digitize our paper records within town buildings and town departments. In 2023, we started a digitization effort using ARPA funds, and we were able to digitize records from the assessor's department. And that has greatly improved our efficiency in those records, both being able to access them more frequently, access them easier. We have a database where things are recorded and you can find things. It also allows us to have what I'll call an insurance policy on those records, that if there were to be a flood or a fire or a natural disaster, that those records are in place. We have a huge need across all other town departments to digitize our records. Tecton studied this. They were our facilities assessment architect firm related to our space needs as well as other functions to make us more efficient. And we'd like to move forward with this multi-year effort to digitize those records from those other departments. I don't have any quotes today because we wanted to make sure we had support from capital planning before doing that. We want to make sure this is a package, that the IT department is on board, that other departments are on board with how we catalog things, how we inventory things, and how we make ourselves more efficient. This will also help with public records requests. We get those in frequently, and oftentimes we're going through our paper files and scanning and then culling through those, redacting information will help us be more efficient to get those as well. And as I spoke to before, we want to make our space more efficient. We are kind of packed to the gills in a lot of the town buildings. This would allow us to free up cabinet space, paper storage space to have more efficient workspace for our employees. One excellent example of another reason why we want to do this is, like I said before, that type of insurance policy. Some of you may have heard that we had a grease trap leak in the fire department, and that leaked right into our office that holds all of the fire permits and those records. Luckily, the records were not damaged, but right now we actually cannot store them because that area is under construction. So these records are being stored in the fire training room, which again is vulnerable to that sense. If records are digitized and they are required to keep paper copies for the public records law, we'd find areas of town that are conducive to keeping these records but are not conducive to employees or the members of the public coming in. So again, this is a $100,000 request for fiscal 27. I'd be likely asking for this over a period of 5 years, depending on how this process goes. And it would certainly go out to bid for a consultant who does this work. Many other municipalities are working on projects similar to this right now. So happy to help, happy to answer any questions, but also just wanted to close by saying this really is conducive to our strategic plan, being a responsive and responsible town government, and environmental sustainability as well, trying to get rid of these paper records if we can, to free up some more space for other needs that we have in town.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm sure we'll have some questions on it. Just first from my point of view, how long would it take you to get the quotes? Like, saying we support it. And I personally, I think it makes a ton of sense, especially with everything we've got going on these days, to have all those records not digitized. I think is a huge risk for the town. But I'm assuming there are a number of firms out there and companies out there that are doing this work. So if we support it, how quickly do we think we'd get quotes in so that we could then review them, those quotes with capital in order to get it in for the March meeting?
Yeah, I would need to do some work with IT in our departments. It's generally by volume, and it's
Mhm.
also based upon generally by, do they have to, and this is very minute, unstaple paperwork, take things out of binders, those types of things. And then what our schema would be for the file retention of how we want them to name those files moving forward.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so I don't have a good sense. Dan, I know you may have helped in the assessor's process. Do you have a sense of the quote process?
The process, I was involved in the process, but I don't think it was that long of a turnaround. And just the funding with this, if we have a flat amount like $100,000, that will carry forward year to year, so we can keep funding other departments. It'll be generic like the school computers or town computers. So I'm not as worried about having a nice, quoted number that matches, because we will come back for more funding in the future too.
So as long as, Dan, just for everybody's edification, as long as we appropriate enough to get it started and going every year, we can then earmark the amounts needed for it ongoing.
That's correct. If there's balance left, that can roll over into the next part of the project too. So.
Awesome. All right, thanks. Tom, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, a couple things. First, Krusty, you mentioned it being based on volume, which is my experience as well. But with that, are we looking at going through those files first to identify paper that is no longer needed based on retention law? Because my experience again is that things just get put in the folder even if we don't need it. So that's one thing. Second thing I'll point out is the problematic nature of paper is that, hey, the state still requires us to have it, but I don't know how many people on this call remember that paper is part of the reason that town hall was renovated. The volume of records in inspectional services being on the second floor was part of what led to the structural issues, if I remember correctly. So this is definitely something that we should look at for that as well.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for those comments. We would definitely ask the departments to go through the files first to the extent that they can. I'd hate to spend money on 5 separate things that are all the same. So that makes perfect sense to do that.
It's Jared.
Thanks. Two quick questions. I'm supportive of the digitization efforts. I guess I'm just curious, long term, do you anticipate any additional future headcount or short term support to do the actual digitization efforts? It looks like a lot of documents. And then secondly, just is there any requirements for on-prem versus cloud storage for something like this?
So I'll answer your first question. I may ask for a clarification on your second question. So I would not anticipate any additional employees. We may call for some volunteers to help us. We do have senior tax work off people that we could have assist us with going through the records. And obviously our employees are most familiar with the records that they have as well. Could you clarify your second question for me, please?
Yeah, so on-prem being like us having our own servers and storage that we're going to digitize on site versus cloud, just putting it at another facility.
Yeah, so that's something that I will defer to our technology director. I don't have that information, but that's why we would want to involve that department in this process.
I actually assume, Jared, that depending on the solution you go with, they may or may not have different options for that. Do you know what I mean? They might have cloud solutions. They may have on-site type storage solutions. So that probably comes down into the quotes as well, I would guess.
Yep.
Okay. John C.
Yeah, Kristen, is this just for historical records or older records? And are we digitizing records as we go through, as we generate new records, are they automatically digitized, or is this just for older records that are not?
So this is not for older records. We currently have some community preservation funds that we're using right now for an employee to digitize older records. We're going to be asking the Community Preservation Committee again to up that so we can continue those older records. This would be for more modern records. Also, it would be to assist with I had already requested a permitting system, so we could get all of these records into the permitting system as well. So these are for more modern records rather than the historical records because we cannot use CPC money for that.
So is
And
this,
right now we are accepting some digital records for permitting, but not all because our permitting system is so archaic. So we would have to convert some of our permitting records now into digital format, but we'd want to move forward with digital so we're not backing ourselves into a corner. We're not continuing to have paper records moving forward that we would have to digitize.
so is this going to be a continuing cost effort, for long term? We're going to be doing this
I
every
see
year?
it about a 5-year period to get us in the backlog that we currently have now and to have a period in time, hopefully within the next year, that we stop accepting a lot of paper records so we're not digging ourselves further into a hole.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Folks, is there anyone who feels strongly that we shouldn't pursue the quote? And again, Kristen, if I'm understanding correctly, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you just want to make sure that there's support from capital to move forward with the work that would be necessary to get the quote, so there's general support, and then we still will bring it before capital before approving it on a vote. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah. So at this, I think it makes sense. I think I've heard at least a couple other folks in support of moving forward. Is there anyone who would be opposed to Kristen and the team moving forward with the work needed to at least get a quote before it comes to capital? They feel that strongly that we shouldn't partake in it. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands or any issues, Kristen. So I think you have the support of the committee, and certainly my support to move forward with obtaining the quotes needed.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Jeff Goodwin for the Jeff Show.
Jeff, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you. Good morning. As Kristen mentioned in her presentation, we just recently completed the Tecton facilities assessment on the town side. So now that we have that, we now have facilities assessments for the schools as well as the town buildings. And also with the Tecton report, we now have the format for which we're going to build our 10-year capital improvement plan moving forward. What the two reports have done is really reaffirmed what we already knew, that we have a tremendous amount of deferred maintenance here in town. And it's going to take us years to really get caught up on it truly. So right now I'm staring down the barrel of a lot of priority ones that have been identified in both town and school buildings. So we're at the point where we now have to prioritize the top priorities into 1A and 1B. So that's why you have such a large list of requests in front of you today. And without further ado, I'll jump right into it. I typically each year like to provide a project update for each of the projects that were approved in previous years, but I think if the committee's not opposed to it, we could move right into the requests, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. If anyone has any questions about current projects that are underway, I'm happy to answer those questions. But I think given the amount of time,
Yeah, Jeff, let's go into the. I like that move. Let's go into the current requests, and if anybody has any specifics, we can absolutely follow up at the end of this.
Sure thing. All right. So first off, we're going to start. We got a couple of a vehicle replacement. Dan, am I controlling the slideshow at this point, or are you?
I can do it for you if you want. Is that showing
Okay.
up all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Dan, we're seeing your Zoom screen, your Zoom tab for your web browser, and also the PowerPoint was not in presentation mode, just so you're aware.
All right, I'm just gonna find the correct screen. Here we go.
Perfect.
Can everybody see
All right.
that?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, so yeah, the first request we have is for $90,000 for a vehicle plow truck replacement. The vehicle that you're seeing pictures of right there is a 2012 Chevy 2500 HD with a 8-foot plow that mounts on it. Truth be told, this truck doesn't have a long list of service issues that have been coming up over the last couple of years, but it is one of 3 of our fleet vehicles that has over 90,000 miles on it. And as you can obviously see, the utility body is becoming severely rusted inside and out due to the amount of salt it's exposed to each winter. And with that amount of vehicles at that high mileage and the way they accumulate that mileage, I would probably say that a third of that mileage is probably driving in reverse while they're plowing parking lots in the wintertime. So these vehicles lead a very hard life, and I need to start getting these on a replacement schedule, given the fact that we have 3 of these at pretty high mileage. So I wanted to get this on the radar of the Capital Committee for replacement. We're hoping to basically replace it in kind with a new 2500 HD with an 8-foot plow. That's about all I got on that one. If there's any questions.
John, go ahead.
Quick question, Jeff. So, with the school trucks, do we take advantage of what the DPW has to offer in terms of cleaning off the salt after a storm or anything like that using their cleaning bay? Or do they just kind of, once we've put the salt down, go into some location on school property and when we need them again?
We have not taken advantage of the DPW's cleaning bay. Typically what happens is, when our guys are done with the storm, the salt spreader lives in the back of that truck.
Yeah.
And, we have an incline ramp that we park the truck on, and we hose it out real good after a storm, but we don't utilize the cleaning bay at the DPW garage currently.
I mean, would that help to eliminate some of the rust? I mean, 90,000 miles for a truck, I understand, but it's not that high mileage. I presume is it diesel or is it gas?
It's gas. It's gas.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly, I'm sure Kyle Fox would be happy to let us go up there and use that cleaning bay. So that's certainly an efficiency we can work on to work with the DPW moving forward.
I mean, I realize it's probably tricky. You've got all the schools in town and everything else, but maybe when it's done, and there's been a spare time, it would help from a rust perspective. Certainly wouldn't do any harm.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions on the truck?
John?
Yes, Jeff, you talk about starter issues. Could you characterize those? You just have trouble starting it? Is it battery issues or is it something?
For whatever reason, there's an intermittent issue with the starter where it's caused us some issues in the past. We've had it looked at, and it's kind of one of those funky things where it goes in for repair and the intermittent issue goes away. It hasn't been an issue in recent months, but there has been issues in the past in spring where we were short a sander truck because it just wouldn't start on the morning of a storm. We've gone through the batteries, we've gone through the alternators, we've actually replaced a starter on it at one point. So there is some intermittent issue. I'm assuming there's got to be a shorted wire somewhere in that truck that's causing it to happen, but we haven't been able to chase it down yet.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I just want to point out, I'm aware that 90,000 miles is not that high. It does not seem that high. However, in previous meetings, we've asked for responsible replacement plans, and it sounds like Jeff is trying to do that where, not coming to us with 3 trucks in the same year. So, so if we have 3 trucks at 90,000 miles now, in 3 years, that 3rd truck is going to be really pushing mileage on top of the fact that these are dealing with really student safety. If these trucks aren't available, we are going to have issues with having to cancel or delay school because we can't get the grounds appropriately cleared for them. So
I think those are both great comments, Tom. And I also think, we have to remember it's not just the mileage, it's what they're being used for. This one's 13 years old, and you can clearly see by the pictures the wear and use on it. So I think that's all important to take into consideration when we're debating these types of vehicle replacements. So thank you. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. I'm not against replacing this truck at all. I was just really,
No.
trying to ask a question about how we can do our best to, extend the life of these as much as possible. So clearly, I understand we probably need to replace this one, and we certainly don't want three at once.
No, I like the comments from both. I like all the comments, John. It was not.
Yep.
It was good. No, totally understood. Jamie?
Good morning. What happens to these trucks after they are out of commission? Do we like trade those in? Do we try to sell them to somebody to recoup some money? What is that process?
I haven't yet determined what the trade-in value of the truck is yet, but typically we'll always try and trade in a vehicle. Depending on what the trade-in offer is and how much that moves the needle on the actual purchase price of the new vehicle. There have been times in the past where we deemed that it was more valuable to have as a spare as opposed to getting it out of the fleet altogether. But also, I will say Roy Philbrick, my facilities foreman, has done a great job working with Mike Edwards in Town Hall to start surplusing and disposing of surplus equipment and getting some money back to the town for old equipment. So we would certainly pursue the trade-in option first. And if that didn't really seem like the best route, we would probably intend to surplus it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, let's keep going.
All right. So next on the list is an equipment replacement. What you're looking at here is it says Kubota tractor 90,000 because that's what we're hoping to purchase with this money. But what you're looking at in the pictures here is a Coyote tractor that was actually originally purchased by the water department back in 2003. For whatever reason, back then they basically deemed that it really didn't work well for what they were doing. So apparently there was a swap between facilities and the water department. We traded them a trailer for this tractor. And this tractor's primary purpose is to be used. It gets used around the facilities garage, primarily to load salt spreaders in the wintertime. But it's also used for other miscellaneous work. It moves equipment around. There is a fork attachment that we have for it that we can do some other things down at the facilities garage. Last year, this tractor had multiple issues, and we sent it out to get quotes for repair up at Concord Tractor in New Hampshire. And they came back to us with about $5,365 worth of necessary repairs, but also indicated on the quote that due to the excessive rust and corrosion around the tractor, it's very hard to estimate what actual repairs are going to be because they were afraid to touch it. In certain areas, they were worried that if they start removing other pieces of parts, other things would probably fall off of the thing. You can obviously tell by the pictures that this tractor's in rough shape. In reality, it's a little undersized for what we need to do with it. It just barely reaches the salt spreaders to get loaded up during a storm, but it just about makes it. So what our goal would be with this is to dispose of this particular tractor and purchase a brand new Kubota tractor with a few attachments included. And the new tractor would live at Westford Academy, where we currently have another Kubota living down there. And we would bring that Kubota that lives at the Academy now back to the maintenance garage to serve the purpose that this one fills. And then that new Kubota would live out there with we would end up putting a new salt, a fertilizer and seed spreader attachment on it, and also a brush cutting attachment, as well as a backhoe attachment on the back of it. So that's what the $90,000 quote includes. There's several attachments that we would want on that new tractor. So I hope that wasn't completely confusing. So any questions about the tractor?
John, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but thank you, Jeff.
That's okay.
So if I understand you correctly, we fill the salt spreaders, all of them, at the DPW. So I guess the logical question would be, why do we need a separate tractor for the schools? Why can't we use what the DPW uses to fill the trucks?
It's a great question, one that we knew was coming. So we actually have, the DPW has an auxiliary salt shed down the hill at our location at 30 Beacon Street. And they continue to store salt there each year. So they have a salt shed up the hill at 28 North, and we have one down at our spot as well. When this tractor was down for the count last year for about a month, we did have to go up the hill to the DPW to get our spreaders filled. And I'm not saying that's not an option that we can't go with moving forward, but I will say it does impact our ability to load up our equipment and get out to the schools and deploy to the schools in a timely fashion. Because up the hill, they load their spreaders with a much larger front end loader that requires having an excavator's license, which my team doesn't have. My guys would have to wait sometimes an upward of 20 minutes to a half an hour for a certified operator to show up and actually load their truck up. So I'm not saying we can't pursue a model like that moving forward, but it does impact our ability to get these spreaders out to the schools in a timely fashion.
Okay, Jeff, thank you. I understand.
Yep.
Tom?
That was a great question, John. I was kind of thinking the same thing, but I'm glad to hear that it's an auxiliary spot for DPW as well, because if I remember correctly, again, a number of years ago during a big ice storm, a tree actually came down across the hill up to DPW, and basically we're stuck with a fraction of the fleet actually on the surface streets able to, but that means that they also weren't able to get back up to the salt. So I think that this ends up serving multiple purposes. In a pinch, you could be loading highway trucks as well.
I think it's also important to mention that with the replacement tractor that we're looking to go after, it's important to understand that we have two grounds people that maintain all of the grounds and sports fields at all of the schools. And it's a tremendous amount of area for two guys to cover. With adding the rotary cutter attachment to this, as well as the backhoe, it's really going to expand what they're capable of doing in an efficient way. So I think giving a limited size crew the right tools to get the job done, I think is going to make them much more efficient in what they're able to cover as far as grounds work. So. All right.
Okay,
all right, moving onward. All right, so in two of our schools, we've had some issues over the past few years related to fire alarm control panels. The two pictures that you see on the right are from the Rita Miller School, and the one on the left is the Nabnasset Elementary School. Truth be told, the panel at the Miller School is actually giving us far more problems at this point, and it's ironic that it's the newer of the two panels. But the bottom line is we've had a significant amount of repair calls for that Miller panel over the past 3 years. And they're actually, it seems to be compounding each year. And now we actually, when the fire department came in this year to conduct the yearly fire drills at the start of the school year, two of the horn strobes on the second floor were not working properly. And we had to bring in Simplex Grinnell to work with our fire alarm company to try and reinstate these horns. And the module that controls those horns, for whatever reason, is not integrating properly with this panel due to its age at this point. We do have the system fully up and operational, but it has become a consistent source of false alarms that call the fire department out in all hours of the night to the Miller School. Typically, when you walk into the vestibule of the school, there's always a panel trouble beeping in that vestibule. And, we're spending a pretty good amount of money each year servicing this panel. In FY23, we were looking at $1,484 for repairs. FY24, $2,809 in repairs. Last year, $3,700 in repairs, and this year we're already up to $1,500 worth of repairs, but there's some pending invoices out there at this point. So the Miller panel has become extremely problematic for us, and it's in need of a replacement. Our goal is to just replace the panel with a new simplex panel that will integrate with all the devices that are in the school. So we're not replacing every smoke detector and heat detector in the school. It would just be a panel upgrade. As it goes with the NAB-NACET panel on the left, this one has been problematic, but to a lesser degree than Miller. This one is just it's due for replacement because the panel that you see there in the picture that was put in the mid 90s. It's not a fully addressable panel. So when there are issues with the system, they become much more difficult to troubleshoot because you're kind of chasing it around. Whereas a new modern panel will tell you right on the screen exactly where your issue is. So they're both in need of a replacement. But if I had to, put one in a higher priority, I would certainly say that the Miller panel is causing us more trouble today. But the NAB-NACET panel is certainly due for replacement as well.
Any questions on these ones, folks? John, go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's my day to ask questions, I guess. So Jeff, are we standardizing across manufacturers, across all the fire systems we have in the schools? And I guess in a sense you could extend that to the BMSs as well. Or do we have sort of different ones? We just go out to bid?
Well, so we do not have a standardized panel in the schools. And unfortunately, when you have a simplex system in your building, you're kind of beholden to use simplex to fix those issues, which if I could get away from them completely, I would love to do that. But that would take this particular project. If we were to revamp the whole system and move to another manufacturer, we'd be looking at more like a $400,000 or $500,000 project as opposed to a $28,000 panel upgrade. So I think there would be some benefits to trying to standardize fire alarm panels in the buildings, but I don't think it's worth that added expense right now.
Right. So this is really just a control system, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think that as we build our new buildings, I would definitely want to push us more towards like a Honeywell or a Gamewell type system that's a little less proprietary. But integrating old buildings can be challenging and costly. So.
No, understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Tom?
Just slightly off topic, but to that last point, do you know what we're doing for the library?
I've got to double check. I'm pretty sure they've spec'd a Gamewell a particular Gamewell panel in there, but I can double check on that. But
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, good.
All right, so that does it for the school requests. So now we're moving into public buildings. So this is a relatively small one. So what you're looking at there is the dry valve for the sprinkler system at the Cameron Senior Center. Each year when they come to do annual inspections, they have to do a full trip of that dry system. And inside of that black valve that you see there is some mechanisms called a clapper valve. And each and every year when they come and run the annual test, they have a hard time actually getting this particular valve to reset properly. There have been instances where it trips automatically and floods the system. It floods the heads in the attic. And then we have to have Encore come back out, drain the system, reset the valve. for the past couple of years, it's been increasingly difficult for them to get this to reset. So this $14,000 that we're requesting is to replace the entire valve, just so we can rest assured that it's functioning properly moving forward. Obviously this is life safety equipment, and if that valve were to malfunction in the midst of a fire, we'd have some severe life safety issues, particularly on the second floor, and getting the population off the second floor. So, any questions on dry valves? Okay. Next up is the 51 Main Street Building Stabilization and Reuse Project. We're asking for a total of $330,600 for this particular work. Mike Edwards and I have been putting our heads together trying to figure out how we can carve out some additional office space and get some use out of 51 Main Street, as well as just also dealing with the envelope issues of the building that are very apparent. If you drive by, you can clearly see that this building needs some desperate attention to the exterior, the roof and siding as well. As we worked around through the inside, we identified areas that we'd like to bring back online for the use for animal control. We think that we've come up with a plan that would allow us to do this by installing, some electric heaters, as well as electric hot water heater. And that would allow us to do this project without bringing the gas back into the building. So the total cost for the interior upfit to bring this back to make an office space for animal control would be $48,000 worth of retrofit money. And then just if we're looking at the exterior repairs to stabilize the exterior envelope of the building, we have quotes for a new asphalt shingle roof, new vinyl siding, and gutters on the exterior. And the total exterior repair estimated cost would be $227,500. Adding some contingency money in there, it brings the total project cost to $330,600. Kristen,
go ahead. Kristen, do you have something?
No.
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute. I lowered my hand, but I didn't unmute. Just for the new members on the committee, we did have this ask before Capital in anticipation of a special town meeting, and then we decided to pull that and get more quotes and more information. Jeff, any other information you want to share just because we did pull that and the new information that you did get?
Well, yeah, the numbers that we shared back in the fall, we determined that the vendor that gave us pricing for the siding and the roof, when I went back and re-asked them the question, apparently they were not factoring in prevailing wage. So the differential in numbers that you're seeing today from what we brought to you in the fall is really a reflection of the prevailing wage not being included in those quotes.
That's helpful. Thank you. Tom?
Okay, a couple questions on this one. So right now we're looking at animal control. Would this allow for any other departments or personnel? One thing. Secondly, when 51 Main Street was up before town meeting for the larger project to include technology, there was a list of deficiencies in the technology department building. Have those been addressed? Is there a plan for those to be addressed? If not, so really future use of this building, and I'm just wondering about how it fits in the overall plan of our facilities at this point.
Yep. So really, we know that there's a lot of there's a lot hinging upon what happens with the Robinson School feasibility study, and we know that study could prove that there's space available down the road, but that's at the earliest a 7 to 10 year plan. We're looking at this as an opportunity to help with the space issues that we currently have on the town hall campus, to get us to that point where we'll have some more opportunity for town admin to spread out a bit. As it relates to the list you're talking about with technology, I wasn't aware of that list that was shared, but we have made some great strides to work on the technology building, even though it's still, it's not the ideal space for them, but we've made improvements to the HVAC systems over there. We recently just redid the second floor HVAC. We redid the HVAC inside the MDF room there, or the server room. And we've also made some much needed roof repairs at the building. So we are making some gains as far as hardening our building down there at the IT department, but by no means do I think that's a long-term space for them. But
Yeah,
Mike Edwards, I'm assuming you have something on that.
I was going to just expand a little bit on what Jeff mentioned. So, like he said, I think when we look at that building, when we look at the overall town hall campus, essentially what we're trying to do is preserve a decision for down the road by keeping 51 Main a viable option for something in the future. It's in a condition now where we either need to put it back into some level of service and ensure that the building envelope is secure and that we're not getting leaks, or we need to plan to tear it down. If we tear it down, we have zero option to reuse the structure, which is actually in pretty good shape. The building itself has good bones. We don't want to take it completely off the table for a future reuse. In regards to IT, there really would be no way to use 51 Main for an IT use without essentially doing 51 Main as a complete renovation, addressing all the accessibility issues. Where we feel animal control makes a lot of sense, even though it is a small department and a small piece of the building. What we have found, and it's been my experience, not just here, but in other places, a vacant building with nobody in it declines very, very fast. It's very important for us to basically get some bodies in there on a daily basis to keep an eye on things and to own the space. And that's really one of the biggest values we get out of having animal control is having eyeballs in that building every day, as opposed to just having it be a vacant storage space. The exterior stuff would be done regardless. But the minor cost to get some space use of moving just that one little corner of the downstairs back into service to us is really helps us preserve the asset and get bodies in there just to own it and treat it like their own, and they will take very good care of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Mike. Tom,
And just to add,
sorry,
to that, sorry. Right now, animal control is spread out all throughout town. They have administrative office space shared with the community wellness coordinator in town hall, where should be our conference room A. Not a good use of space for either of those parties. They have kennels in certain areas. They have their trucks in certain areas. They have storage all over the place. So this would be much more highly efficient, not only for the animal control division, but for our other town departments.
Thanks, Kristen. Sorry, Tom, do you have a question?
More of a point, Mike. I think those were very good points. I would make sure you include those points on any presentation on this particular item, since 51 Main Street's so interesting.
Yeah,
So,
no, Jeff and I, we've spent a lot of time kind of thinking about what a good way to put it back in service and simply preserve our decision down the road. I think what you'll see in the remainder of Jeff's presentation is really a whole lot of deferred maintenance and fixing things so that we're not allowing our buildings to continue to degrade. In terms of space, we don't have any real projects on the near horizon to address space. It is simply about waiting to see what happens until we know what's going on with Robinson. That is probably our best long-term set of decisions that we will need to make, and we're several years away from that. So it's preservation at this point.
yeah, no pressure for the Robinson work.
Jared, what do you got?
Apologize if I missed this or if it was mentioned separately, but what was the cost to demolish the building?
If we look at the costs that we had from the report that was done several years ago, it would be between $500,000 and $600,000.
Okay.
And that's basically wiping it and putting grass down. If we get to a point where we want to make parking, the number just goes up from there. So it really, I'm not going to say it's a no-brainer. There's obviously some decision points in there, but it's very expensive for us to take that thing down.
Okay. Two other questions then coming as a result of that. So I guess in other towns, and I guess, is it normal for animal control to kind of be like a primary focal point in the town center area? And I guess, long-term strategy, would you have wanted to put animal control in this space if you were going to do something else with the area?
I think long term, they need to be located very, very close to public safety functions. Now, that they can also have a standalone facility. We are fortunate for animal control that we have a kenneling arrangement with the town of Chelmsford, so that allows us to basically have an off-site kennel. I think if we didn't have that and we were looking at a comprehensive animal control solution, this may not be the place that we would want it, but we also don't need kennel facilities at this facility. We have some very short-term holding facility in this plan that we have for animal control now. But the adjacency to police really is the primary need for them. There's just entirely too much interaction that they have with police. What they really need is, like Kristen mentioned, storage is a huge thing. Kennels, dog food, supplies, things like that, which are scattered really across the town at their, in their basements, at home, in their cars. They have nowhere to put everything. So it's ideal for us because we do have quite a bit of storage available at that location, but proximity to police is critical.
Next question then, I guess, as a follow-up to that. So the police department, in the long-term strategic planning that you were doing, were there plans to redo the police department, and was animal control a part of that?
In the options that we have that'll be coming out in the Tecton report, there is space for it kind of depends which option we go with down the road, but we would look at keeping them close to police. The issues with police really are more related to some of their, I'm going to say, ancillary spaces, like the what they have for their shooting range right now on site. And we're looking at different options of how we would incorporate that. But yes, the long-term plans would include having animal control, depending on the option that you looked at, located still on this campus.
Okay.
Again, what we do long-term is completely up in the air until we know what's happening with the Robinson project and whether that does present any opportunities for reuse at Abbott.
Thank you.
Tom, go ahead.
Just a couple follow-ups. So I do think that if this goes to town meeting, that having a plan, even if it's not the full what becomes reality in the future of what this space could be, would go a long way. I can see where it would be challenging for $330,000 for one department. It just I can see that being a challenge. So trying to have a longer term plan, and I completely appreciate the waiting on Robinson, but that's a lot of wait, and that's a long time, and continuing ongoing maintenance. It is interesting that it would cost more to demolish than to repair at this point. And then on IT, I was in no way saying that this was a good place for IT. I just wanted to make sure that we were actually addressing our critical, at the time we were being told that the roof was leaking. So I'm glad to hear that work has been done. I just want to make sure we're addressing our critical in-use buildings before we're trying to bring a building back online.
I do want to add kind of 2 points to that. And I agree. I think with respect to the kind of the big picture plan, right now, Jeff and I are kind of working through the final phases of the overall Tecton report that covers our town facilities. So we do intend to flesh that out and be able to explain, all right, these are the decision points that we have coming. Again, our short-term focus is on preservation of all of our buildings, not new space additions. The second piece of that, Tom, that I think is important to keep in mind is it's not just animal control that uses that space, that the bays and the remainder of the space right now are heavily used daily for storage. That is our indoor vehicle storage for public safety. We use it for events. It'll actually be employed for the Veterans Day event coming next week. And it's used for storage for basically everything that happens on the common. So when there's chairs that need to be brought out there, all the veterans signage, health department events, the downstairs bays are right now pretty much full. Between vehicles and storage. So as a storage location, it serves, 3 or 4 other departments as well as the town overall. And so that is a point that we'll make sure we make, this isn't just animal control. This is preserving it for continued use as storage, for support of town events, as well as animal control. There are options to do some reuse down the road that we would have. We are not touching the upstairs other than limited demolition and clean out, and essentially kind of mothballing it. But there may or may not be opportunities to use the structure as it is, for certain things. Just kind of depends what we use it for, but we'll be sure to articulate those things well when we do bring this thing for future discussion and certainly at town meeting.
Thanks, Mike. Jamie, go ahead.
Just kill it, like, beating a dead horse, I guess. But I thought that we talked about when this got taken off the table at special town meeting that we'd get a better quote number of what it does cost to demolish that. And I get that there's some storage use for it, but I don't know. I have a really hard time getting behind $330,000 for one department and some storage space, and it's not even really like fixing all of the problems that are within it. So I imagine that the majority of other people in town will also have a problem with that as well. So I really would like to see the number of what the cost is to just get rid of it. And I think other people would appreciate seeing that as well.
We'll have that number. That's part of what Tecton is working on for their final report, is actually putting that kind of set of projects that center around a short-term reuse of 51 Main. But good point.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the discussion, guys. Why don't we keep moving? Tom, do you want to say something before we move off this?
Yeah, I just wanted to, there was a question about the difference between moving the antenna equipment and now. So I was hoping maybe we could get that answered. It's a question from our attendees.
It's a comment, but spent a lot of money moving antenna equipment because the building was in such bad shape it needed to come down. Crazy other narrative. It's not a question. We're gonna move on from that. Thank you, Jeff. Let's keep going.
All right. All right, next up, Westford Museum accessibility upgrades and restoration. We are currently finalizing our work with Tecton on this one, so we will have pricing on what this scope will look like. They're telling us they should have our numbers by around Thanksgiving. So hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have a little more clarity on what this will actually cost. But getting into it, last year at town meeting, approved $30,000 in CPC funds to conduct a feasibility study to make the building fully accessible for the public. Mike and I began to work with Tecton back in July, end of July, early August, to not only conduct that feasibility study, but also to get their engineers into the building to do a full-on facilities assessment, much like we did with the other town buildings, to get cost estimates for the critical needs of the building, which there are several. As you can see from the pictures, the siding and other exterior features are in extreme disrepair and are in need of a full-on restoration. We have also got renderings on the next slide, if you want to advance one slide, for what a potential addition to make the building fully accessible would be. So what you're seeing here is the addition of a lift or elevator lift on the side of the building where, would give people full access to both the first and second floor. And also one of the other accessibility issues in the building is the bathroom that currently resides under the front stairwell, which is, it's impossible to really, it's like a little broom closet is really what it is. So this addition would basically be the addition of an elevator on the side of the building, but also when you look at the picture on the left side there's that little yellow square inside the footprint of the building. That would be the addition of an accessible bathroom on the first floor. Mike and I presented this with the Historic Commission back in September, and they are very much in favor of what's been proposed. There would still be some hurdles to climb with the Mass Historic Commission to get their approval that we could do this sort of work on the building. But we're bringing it before you today with the intent that we'll have numbers by the end of the month, and that it would probably be a community preservation ask at town meeting.
Good. Very good.
Now, I will go, a step further to say that the accessibility piece, whether or not that happens, is one thing, but the restoration of the exterior is not a want; it's a need at this point. Westford Museum is an important structure in our town, and if we don't do something to get that exterior restored soon, we're going to have major problems with that building. So that is a desperate need that needs to be addressed if we're going to preserve that building. Okay, next slide. So the town hall roof reinforcement and slate roof restoration project. This was a priority one identified in the Tecton report, and it's reaffirming what we knew. As you can see from the picture that you're seeing on the bottom of your screen there are a couple of sections of the attic that we have to lay plastic drop cloths down. We do have some intermittent leaking that goes on in this roof. What we'd be looking at in the scope of this project is the 4,910 square foot section of slate roof that is over the historic portion of Town Hall. It's been prone to leaking in recent years, particularly around the base of where the cupola is. There's also some copper work around that we would need to determine the level of scope that would have to go in around the cupola, but that is a major hotspot for leaking. There's also an area, if you step away and look at Town Hall, you can see that over where the building department is, there is a pretty significant dip in the roof there, and we have had leaks above the building department. Tecton identified 2 line items, one to replace the slate totally, but also to reinforce the roof rafters, and we're determining what level of scope that will look like to refine that a little more. But this would undoubtedly, it is a top priority. Town Hall did go through a restoration back in 2010, but they did not touch the roof at that time, and it is ready to be done. The 2018 roof conditions assessment identified the roof in poor condition with 0 to 4 years of useful life remaining. So we're really on borrowed time at this point with that roof. All right, next slide.
John, hold on one second. John, you have a question?
All right, John.
Yeah, just a quick question, Jeff. So if we, when we replace this roof, I guess it means replacing whether they like it or not. Would we replace it with slate or to shingles or something else?
That remains to be seen. The town hall is a registered historic building, so we're going to have to find out a little more about what we're approved to be able to use. I know that there are synthetic slates that can be used in those sort of situations, but at this point in time, I would not be able to tell you exactly what we'd be allowed to put back up there, but it would have to pass muster with the historic, Mass Historic.
Okay, understood. So what does this particular budget quote or line item include? Is it for slate or?
Yes, that what they've priced out is a slate for slate estimate. I think that we should take that number with a grain of salt until we really truly vet what the scope of work is going to be needed around the cupola. So right now, this is really a budget placeholder based on what was listed in the Tecton report, but we would always, if we had the support of the capital committee, we would go forward and start getting estimates for the full scope. And if we had to update that number, we will.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff.
Okay. Any other questions about the roof? All right.
Keep going.
Next up, Nabnasset Fire Station generator replacement, $22,000 we're asking for. The current generator that you're seeing there is a Briggs & Stratton generator. It's a 12 kilowatt generator. It's more of a residential style. It was installed right around 2012. Since then, we've added additional systems into the building, particularly the vehicle exhaust extraction system, but there's been other systems added as well. And now this generator cannot support the load of the building anymore. So what we're proposing is replacing this with a new 26 kilowatt generator that will adequately support all the building's needs in the event of a power outage. The past couple winters, we have had a couple issues with this generator, one of which last year we ended up having to bring a temporary generator out there for a few days just to back the building up. We did have some power outages and the generator did fail. So this is definitely an urgent need. We have first responders in that building and maintaining their power is important. So this is one that's critical. All right, next up. All right, so 30 Beacon Street, also identified as a priority 1 in the Tecton report. This project scope would include replacing the roof and also doing work to stabilize the exterior of the building and demolishing some of the outstructures that live around the building. 30 Beacon Street used to be the home of the DPW before they moved up the hill at 28 North Street. At that point, when they moved out, facilities moved in, and believe it or not, this was a significant upgrade for our department based on where they were before at Town Farm Road. But the site has certainly fallen into disrepair. I think it was probably that way when DPW moved out, and not much has been done with it since. So what this project scope would include is the demolition of the existing diesel tank that's no longer used, a modular office addition, which you can see in the bottom right picture on the next slide, the replacement of the rubber roof and masonry repair around the entire building. As you can see, there is some serious issues with the CMU block walls on the back right side and the back left side of the building. If we don't get these issues dealt with, we're going to have major structural issues with the building. You can see that the block is disintegrating at this point. So this is what we need to do to really stabilize this building and make it useful for us for years to come. As it relates to the roof itself, 2018 roof conditions assessment listed it as failing conditions, 0 to 1 years left of remaining life. So once again, we're well beyond the useful life of the roof. And in order for us really to make these masonry repairs that are needed on the building, you're going to have to get under the roof to do that work anyway. So the two scopes go side and side. They have to really be done, simultaneously. I will say, and I want to tip my cap to my maintenance team. They've been working very hard in conjunction with the DPW. David Smith has been extremely helpful in getting his crew down there to help us. We've been really tidying up the site in the last year and a half. We've been surplusing old dilapidated equipment. We've been knocking down some of the soil piles that exist around there and really tidying up the whole site in general. And there will be some subsequent asks in following years. But right now, what we're looking at is really just trying to stabilize the site and get rid of, that modular building that you see there. That used to be the office for engineering down there when it was DPW. But it is fallen into complete disrepair and it needs to be taken off the building. So.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, is that facility completely utilized?
Yes, it is. Yep. And actually, the size of the building, it works very well for what we have for a facilities fleet. It houses all of our trucks. Each of our tradespeople has their own garage bay, and we also store all of our paper and cleaning products for the school district. So it's not only a maintenance garage, but it's also a storage facility for our school cleaning products as well. But it is completely utilized. Tecton's report is certainly going to indicate that it's a little undersized for what we need, but like I said, we've been doing a lot of cleaning up and putting a lot of elbow grease into consolidating spaces in the building. And it's, we've brought it a long way in the last year, but in order for us to really keep the process moving of getting this site really cleaned up the way we want it to be, we've got to make these improvements to the building shell itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. So the next one, I was with you a few weeks ago and brought this to your attention that the heating plant at the Frost School has risen to the level of a bit of an emergency replacement. We did make some repairs to the boiler there last year, and we thought we would have another year with it. But upon startup, it was brought to my attention that we've got some issues going on with the boiler, and I think we're playing a dangerous game to try and get through the winter with this thing. As I mentioned in the last meeting, this boiler is a 20-year-old Wheel McLean boiler. It's a steam boiler, and due to a couple of the floods that have happened in the building, that boiler has been partially submerged at a couple of occasions, which has obviously caused damage to it. Over the past few weeks, I've had Guardian Energy Management and their engineers out there on 2 occasions to explore what the electrification process would be if we were to convert this to an electric heat pump to not only heat, but provide cooling and better ventilation in the building. As we've been working through that process, it's very clear that that is going to be a hugely invasive project that would also require us to do a 400 amp service upgrade, as well as pouring a huge concrete pad outside to rest the air source heat pump on, not to mention the invasiveness of what they would need to do to get their ductwork through the inside of the building. So we would have to displace Rodenbush for, I would say, at least a couple of weeks so we could get in there and do that sort of work to the building. Given all that, it's very clear that electrification project is not going to be something that could be completed quickly that would alleviate our concerns of getting through the winter with this particular boiler. So at this time, I do have one proposal for $49,995 to replace the boiler in kind. We are working on getting 2 other quotes just to satisfy procurement laws if we decide to pull the trigger on a boiler replacement at this time. I certainly think that the building is ripe for an electrification project down the road, but I don't think it's going to be something that's feasible at this current time. So, any questions on the boiler at Frost? Okay. Next slide. Staying at the Frost School, this is one that I wanted to include because it was identified as a priority 1 in the Tecton report. Is a comprehensive lighting upgrade throughout the building. Right now, all the fixtures in the building are a mixture of tube fluorescents and circ line fluorescent fixtures, which are obviously very inefficient by today's standards. This is a project I think that could be completed through our next round of lighting upgrades or possibly with Green Communities grant funding down the road. Dan and Mike and I have had some conversation about how that might work, given the fact that the Rodenbush actually pays the electrical bills. So there are some options as how that project could be financed, but that'll have to be a conversation that occurs between the town and Rodenbush as to how that would possibly work. But I at least wanted to have it in here and mention that it was listed as a priority 1, and it should be addressed down the road. But I don't necessarily think that we would ask for the $246,000 from capital to do that at this time. So, next slide. Frost School fire escape replacement. Tecton report priority 1, $32,000 is the ask. By Mass state law, every 5 years, we're required to have all of our fire escapes inspected by a licensed engineer. I did have this done back in 2023. Odin Engineering came in and inspected this fire escape as well as the one over at the old NAB school. And they listed this one, you know, for the most part, structurally they listed it in fair condition, but as far as paint and corrosion goes, very poor condition. The biggest issue with the fire escape you're looking at here at Frost is the bent railings and the fact that the openings on the railings do not meet current code for safety. This particular fire escape, I would say, would be better to replace this than try and put any work into trying to rehab it. In all honesty, if I was a small toddler-age child running out of that building or trying to get out of that building, I would be terrified to go out on that fire escape. So at this point, we feel like this is a high priority to get that replaced with a brand new galvanized fire escape that meets modern code. All right, next up. Another fire escape over at the old NAB school, 170 Plain Road. Same situation. These two escapes were inspected by Odin Engineering back in 2023. They actually evaluated them as pretty well. They determined that they were in good condition except for the paint and rust. These two fire escapes are in much better shape than the Frost School escapes, and I think that these would be a candidate to have sandblasted and repainted, but I think the railings would also need to be modified. So there's balusters on them that no further than 4 inches apart to meet modern code. So that $42,000, that price right there would be to replace them outright, but I think we can do better than that and probably get these revamped, sandblasted, repainted, and be done with them. So I think there'll be some savings there. And I plan to get harder quotes on what that would look like as we go. All right. So more priority ones from the Tecton report. They identified the fire alarm control panel, the fire pump, and the fire pump controller replacement at the DPW garage at 28 North Street as a top priority. They did list some pricing in their report, but I am currently working with some vendors to get in there and really determine the true scope of what's going to need to be done with this. The picture that you're looking at on the right there, that is the pump, that the pump itself and how it connects to the actual sprinkler system there. Obviously, being at the top of the hill on 28 North Street, you need that pump to boost the water pressure in the event that the sprinkler system was activated. So it is a critical piece of equipment. In speaking with some vendors, they're of the belief that that pump should still be within its useful life. So we're currently vetting what Tecton has recommended to see if we actually need to replace that pump or not. In the bottom picture that you're seeing on this slide, that is the pump controller. This is a piece of equipment that does need to be replaced. If you look closely at the picture, you can see that there's some water damage on top of the cabinet. There's a 1/2-inch plumbing line that was plumbed directly above the cabinet, and apparently it had been dripping there since the building was built. I don't know exactly how long the drip was occurring, but it was clear that it was dripping right on top of the controller, and some of the components inside have been damaged to that. So we're currently working to establish what the full scope of the project is, but this is a critical need for our DPW building.
Jeff, what do you think on timing for getting that scope and cost?
I have people coming out next Thursday morning. We're going to go in there with a team of technicians. We're going to run the pump through all its paces to make sure that it's actually functioning adequately and all the windings are in good shape on the motor. So I should have more clarity on this by the end of next week, and hopefully the following week I'll actually have hard estimates as far as what that's going to take. So,
all right. No, that timing would be great for us as we think about projects for next year. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd have any information for your next Friday meeting, but
no, as long as we have it within a couple
Yep.
weeks before.
We're moving on all this stuff, rounding up pricing as we go. So
okay, thank you.
Yep. So next slide ties in with that one as well. This is the fire alarm control panel at the DPW garage. It was identified as a Tecton priority 1. It's certainly getting near the end of its useful life. I will say we haven't had a tremendous amount of calls or maintenance issues as it relates to it, but I am getting pricing to replace that alarm control panel to have. And that'll be part of the ongoing conversation to determine if it's something that we need to do this year, if it's something we can defer another year. So I'll have more information on that as well.
Okay.
All right, so that's the end of our.
Hey, Jeff, before we move on from that one, there was one question in the chat that actually I think would be helpful. It's just as an overview. It's just around solar, and it's when we're replacing roofs on
Yep.
any, really, for any of the buildings around town we're replacing, this question would apply. So that's why I want to answer it live here. But
Yep.
the question is just, are they solar ready? Are they prepared? If we wanted to add solar, can you just spend maybe 60 seconds touching on the thoughts around solar and roofing when we're replacing that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So we just recently completed our Blanchard roof project. We spent an additional $200,000 to have an engineer come in and tell us what we need to do to reinforce that roof to make it solar ready. And we have a lot of roofing projects that are on the horizon that we're going to be bringing before you in years to come. And my goal, and it aligns with our goals of the town for clean energy projects, is that any roof work we do, we are going to be assessing the roof and making it ready for the addition of a photovoltaic system. So
Awesome.
some roofs are small in size, some roofs are large in size, but yeah, we are always going to be looking at roof projects as an opportunity for solar.
Terrific. Thank you
Yep.
for that. That's a great ad. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Before we get into the next part, and it's not on the agenda, but it is in the database, and I do have Mark Warren here that can speak a little more elaborately on this one. But an issue was brought to our attention in the last couple months, and it relates to the work that they've been doing with DEP to determine, our sewer coverage coming from the new library expansion down to the Abbott wastewater treatment plant. Mark and Jeremy Downs have been doing a lot of work trying to figure out where we've been getting a water infiltration between the town common and the Abbott wastewater plant. And upon investigation, they did find that we have some issues with our clay sewer line that comes out of the back of Abbott Elementary School over to the Abbott treatment plant. And it sounds like there's going to be a meeting with DEP next week to find out what the level of urgency is, or whether or not we're going to have to pursue this project immediately. I guess they do have a quote from Onyx Corporation to do this work for $132,000 and change. And if Mark doesn't mind, he can certainly elaborate a little more as to how this whole conversation came to fruition. But given the fact that it's my building and my sewer line, it's my ask. But Mark can speak much more about the sewer line than I can. So take it away, Mark.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yep. You're
Okay,
good, Mark.
great. Yeah, so I'll give you a brief history. The town center sewer system has had periodic episodes of infiltration and inflow, I&I. That's evidenced by, again, these periodic excursions of our Abbott wastewater treatment plant permitted flow limits. We do think that it's related to a couple of conditions: high groundwater and precipitation. We've done an extensive amount of investigation to hopefully find some sort of a smoking gun. Part of that investigation involved inspecting the gravity portion of the system, and we put cameras into the actual pipes, and it looked like a lot of the pipe down there, the plastic pipe, is in great condition. However, we did, notice that this older clay pipe had roots growing into it. There was at least one offset joint, and that's, we can't say with certainty that that is the source of I&I. It does definitely pose a potential with high groundwater and precipitation events. So, as required by DEP, I submitted a report that discussed all of these findings, and my approach would be to continue monitoring this situation, tracking groundwater levels, tracking precipitation, doing wet weather observations, possibly installing a flow meter coming out of the Abbott school, so that we could actually say, yes, this is the source of I&I, or this is a source of I&I. Really, it's going to be up to the DEP. It's going to be their decision. They may agree and say, yeah, keep monitoring the situation, or they may say, we think this is a very strong potential source of I&I. You just got to fix it. Unfortunately, we don't know that now. We will probably know that next week. Our meeting is next Wednesday, and we'll have better direction at that point. But again, I would prefer to hold off on replacement if we can. It just might be out of our hands.
Understood. Thanks, Mark.
Yep.
Any questions for Mark?
Nobody
Thank
wants
you,
to
Mark.
talk about the sewer system.
You just did such a good job. You're just so thorough with the sewers, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to our next section, and I think this will be probably the more robust section of our conversation today. We wanted to identify some projects that could potentially be included in a performance contract down the road. We've been working on projects that were identified in the IGA report that was started 4 years ago. We've been making a lot of grounds and picking off some of the low-hanging fruit from those projects. But there's still some larger projects that could be included in that hanging out there. And one very, very large project that is, we've known that it's been on the horizon for a while. It was something that I was originally planning to submit in FY28. But due to recent issues that are compounding in the last 8-9 months, even a year, we have to rise this up to the level of importance and get this in front of you now, because we're getting to the point where we're having a very difficult time limping along with this system. So what we're looking at here, we're talking about the Westford Academy roof, HVAC, and BMS system replacement. And just before I go any further, I do want to say that I did publicly sort of introduce this in a public forum at the school committee meeting in October. So this will be the second time we're talking about this. So there are some people that are aware that this project is out there. But anyway, without further ado, what we're presenting here is the Academy roof and HVAC systems that we're having issues with. So currently on the roof, we have an assortment of York rooftop HVAC units. They're all well beyond their useful life. They probably should have been replaced about 10 years ago. And we're having more and more critical failures each and every year that are really affecting the spaces of the school and affecting our ability to even repair them. Johnson Controls issued me a letter, which I believe I've loaded it into the database, but basically they're saying due to the age of the units, they are out of support, and Johnson Controls is no longer willing to provide us any pricing or estimates to make repairs to these units. So that certainly raises the critical need that we need to get these units on a pipeline for replacement. The roof itself is 26 years old. It was replaced during the expansion of the Academy back in 1999. If anybody really wants to know how old that is, just look at Dan O'Donnell. He graduated from Westford Academy that year, so that gives you an idea of the age of the units. In 2018, the roof assessment listed the roof in poor condition with only 3 years left of useful life. So we're now well beyond that point at this juncture. Also part of this project is we also have an aging Siemens building management system, which we also support 6 of our other schools. That system, they sunsetted support on that system in 2021. And that also affects not only the Academy, but Stony Brook, Miller, Blanchard, and Crisafulli. So that's also a critical need. The fact that we have a failing building management system coupled with failing HVAC equipment on the roof when we have problems at the academy, it's become very difficult to troubleshoot whether or not we're dealing with an actual mechanical issue or a software issue. So we spend additional money each year chasing down these failures, and it's becoming very difficult to operate the system. Our in-house custodial staff spends half hour to 45 minutes, sometimes in upwards of an hour, just resetting these systems on a daily basis, which obviously takes away from what their primary job is to actually, do the custodial work in the school. The SMMA report conducted in 2023 listed all three of these systems as a major critical need for the district. If you want to move on to the next slide. So as we talk about this as potentially being included as part of a performance contract, we also have to consider what our other options are as how we fund this project and what that might mean. Obviously, the number that you're seeing is a very large number, and those were estimates that I pulled from the SMMA report and escalated out to when we think construction would happen. But that number you're seeing, just so everyone's clear, would be an apples to apples replacement of what's currently on the roof now. The MSBA has included now, they are, back when their accelerated repair program only really covered roofs, they haven't started to include HVAC replacements as part of an accelerated repair program, but there's certain caveats that come along with that. If you pursue an accelerated repair project through the MSBA and include HVAC in it, there are certain things that you have to do, which would include the installation of heat pumps, electric heat pumps, and you'd also have to now cool 100% of your classroom space in the building, which it would be a huge departure from what we're currently cooling in the building. So operationally, that would have a huge impact on us. But it's just things to consider as we look at the different avenues we could use to pursue this project. With that being said, if we did want to try and get involved in the accelerated repair program for this, the application window for that would open in the spring of 2027. So if we applied at that time, we would find out if we were accepted in the fall of 2027, and typically that happens after our town meeting. So at the earliest, we would be seeking design funding for this in March of 2028. And this is, I don't even know if it would be feasible for them to have a full-fledged construction design between town meeting of 28 to get us ready to ask for project funding in March of 2029. So if we were to go to the accelerated repair program route, and if everything went perfectly to plan and the timing all lined up, the earliest we could possibly be undertaking this work would be June of 2029. So that's something to consider as we decide which avenue we decide to go, whether we include this in a performance contract or if we do this through the MSBA. If we were to include it in the performance contract, it would be included in there with other projects like the Cameron Senior Center HVAC and a comprehensive building management system replacement across all town and school buildings. Other things to consider is that there's definitely opportunities for decarbonization grants and rebate incentives through the grid. We won't know what those would tally up to until we actually got into the engineering of what the new system would be. But they're certainly out there, and there's a lot out there for us that we would be looking at. As I mentioned, the current cost estimates that you're about to see on the next page are an apples to apples replacement of what's currently there. I would say that we're certainly going to want to consider some engineering changes as far as what we're cooling in the building. And I would anticipate that we more than likely would not be wanting to replace these with apples to apples HVAC systems. So, but right now, the number that I have that I can share with you now is what I have from that SMMA report, and that's the $24,695,000 that you're seeing here in the request. If you want to scroll to the next slide, Dan, there's a breakdown of how SMMA laid that out in their report, breaking down each of the systems and what that means. I think it's also important to note that at the time when they were creating these cost estimates, that was when inflation was really going through the roof and there was a lot of uncertainty about the construction trades at that time. So I think that taking these numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt and knowing that I'm sure they built in some cushion because of that uncertainty at the time, I'm hoping, and I would venture to say that I think that when we figure out where we're going with this project and how we intend to do the project, that we're going to be looking at a number that's a lot less scary than what you see there at the bottom line item. So, I kind of feel like this is an opportunity to open up if anyone has any questions, because this is a very big discussion that we have in front of us here.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Okay, so we did do roof tours, really, of the WA roof, and a couple observations. Back in the pictures, I think it was the top picture, and Jeff kind of didn't mention this piece. You can see a garden hose up on one of these units. That is the level of failure we're at. We're needing to run garden hoses to try to keep these limping through in the summer. And I know it's the summer. Actually, I would even say it's probably in the spring and early fall that we're probably running into this. Additionally, the next picture, there's a ladder there. From our discussion, it sounds like that ladder stays on. That speaks to how often they're up there working on these things. Okay. This is my observation was I knew it was a big building, but when I got up there, I didn't realize how expansive it was. This is a huge roof. So it's a scary number, but it's a vast system that needs to be done. We did note that this is the largest asset that the town has. Not only the physical building, but also the concept of when you ask why people move to Westford, it is very often the schools. So it's, again, an asset that way. Some napkin math is that in 2018, it was determined to be poor condition with 3-year life. That puts it at 2021. We're now 4 years past that. If we go with the accelerated replacement program, which granted it has some great financial incentives too, the earliest we're looking at is 10 years past its useful life. That's 10 more years of leak patching, 10 more years of crossing our fingers that we can get parts for these things. If these systems fail, we do again risk not being able to educate kids in large portions of the school, and that has real impacts. So I mean, I'm looking at that and saying, waiting for the accelerated grant, it may not be worth it for us as a town. And really it's past the time that we need to deal with this, because again, we're not getting parts for it anymore, or the parts are becoming exceedingly difficult. If we're paying an hour a day of salary for custodians to be up there, that factors in. So again, that number may be scary, but it's reality, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, Jeff, you're being optimistic that it's going to be a better price, but I do think it's going to just keep escalating if we keep kicking it.
Thanks, Tom. Shauna?
I also went up on the roof. I have actually had the pleasure of being on 3 of our roofs now. And I will say that it's not the smoothest climbing up onto this roof. So it's from a safety perspective. I have some concerns about the fact that we have custodians up there every single day, especially as we get into the winter months. Now I'm clumsy, and Jeff knows that I struggled getting up on the WA roof this time, but I also was up on the Blanchard roof, and it's considerably safer because it was just redone and redesigned as well, with the ladders and the ways that we're getting up onto the roof. So I definitely have, from an HR perspective, myself, workers' comp concerns. And we did see this presentation, but Jeff, that's the first, the updated MSPCA information that's a long time. I don't know how they call that an accelerated program if we can't do any work on the roof for literally 4 years. So my question, kind of follow-up questions, and maybe it's not for right now, but to think about as we are determining the avenues is, can we even wait that long? Like, we're talking about our BMS systems. We're not able to get replacement parts. How do we function for the next 3.5, 4 years if we can't get parts that we need to do it? And will the roof issues, preservate over those 4 years if we can't get it done before then? So.
Thank you, Shauna. Dr. Chu?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and help Jeff with the MSBA conversation just a little bit based on Shauna's just comment too. The MSBA, the accelerated repair program that they've had for a number of years that the Blanchard Roof project was just supported by. The MSBA changed their window, I think it was 2 years ago, and decided because of their own funding that they're only opening the ARP every other year now. So it used to be an annual thing that we would have been able to submit to, but then that's why he's saying we wouldn't be able to apply for it until that next year because they've changed their timeline specifically. And then the other thing I just wanted to add was Jeff, for those of you who haven't been able to climb up on the roof, if any of the members of the Capital Committee would want to, we could certainly take them up there. But Jeff and I we were able to go up there just the other day with WestfordCAT to film one of my video updates up there to just kind of, again, share with people how big this roof is, because I think it's something that people don't necessarily think about. But when we were up there, Jeff, you talked about the insurance claims that we've had and the amount of damage that has happened. I was wondering if you could just share that, because I think that's just helpful information as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So to Dr. Chu's point, this, and reaffirming what Tom said, Westford Academy is the biggest physical asset that the town owns. The school itself is 296,000 square feet. The roof is 137,000 square feet. And just to give you an idea, Blanchard is 111,000 square feet. So it's even bigger than the Blanchard roof we just completed. Yeah, I've been pulling information, service records, maintenance hours spent on the roof. So I'm really trying to pull together a comprehensive bit of information to support this. But yeah, over the past, just since I've been here and a little bit before I've got here, there's been at least 4 insurance claims related to the building and the HVAC system. And from what I can do with the math I've pulled together, we're looking at, the total cost of these losses altogether was $286,000. We've had major compressor failures on the auditorium. 2 summers ago, in the summer of 2023, on July 17th, we had a microburst come through town and it fried our building management system to the point where the building management system basically lost all of its licensing, and we basically had to rebuild that from the ground up. Took us over a month and a half. And with all the summer programming that we run in that school, we had a lot of unhappy folks trying to run their programming in there in the middle of the summer. So we're losing these systems for periods of time. Tom mentioned about the garden hose, which is kind of one of those things I don't really love talking about it because it's not a great way to get by, and it's not sustainable. And but that particular unit services the office admin areas, and typically it really becomes problematic in at the end of August and early September, when we always get those really hot streaks and our admins are sweating down there. So we were really just trying to do whatever we can do to get some comfort down into those spaces. But more importantly, there are classrooms and offices within this building that don't have any windows. And so the ventilation piece is really what's key, especially as we realized during COVID how important it is to have the appropriate amount of air exchanges in the building. So while some of these units offer creature comforts like air conditioning, most of these units are more related to just the proper ventilation of the building. And with those interior rooms with no windows, it's critical to the operation of running a healthy building, and it's very important for the occupants to make sure that we're getting the right amount of air exchanges in there, especially as we get into cold and flu seasons. So the need is great. And like I said, I'm going to continue to pull together as much information as I can to quantify how this has affected us in our operation. So,
yeah, thanks, Jeff. John, go ahead.
Hi, Jeff. Hey, thank you very much for your presentation and information. Yeah, as we understand, it seems like we're into a plan to a rock and roll place, right? You know, there are big ticket items that really have to be done. I guess my question is not necessarily for you, but maybe for Kristen or Dan or somebody. You know, when we have a handle on capital projects that need to be done in the next 10 years, if I look at this
John, I
information,
hate to stop you, but your microphone is very muffled. I'm not sure if something's in front of your microphone.
um,
It was clear earlier in the meeting.
Yeah, something happened.
something happened. How is it still bad?
Still pretty
Still
bad.
pretty muffled.
Ah, out. So I don't know quite what happened. Let me.
John, try leaning back a little bit.
Back. Is that better?
Yes.
There we go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry. Let me try and rephrase quick. I guess question is.
It was better for a second.
Yeah, it's not great, John.
Are you able to type your question into the chat, John, and perhaps we can help? I'm wondering if your question has to do with around how do we finance something like this, or what are the next steps?
That's part of it. But the question is, we've known about the roof since 2000, early 2000s, but it never came up because there wasn't a appear to be a long-term plan, and we decided that we would fund unmanaged projects, let's say, all right, versus something that is essential to the town. You know, if people could have a complete view of what we need to do over, an extended period of time, because this has no impact to taxes because it's excluded debt. Right? It's above the levy. I'm in a position soon to present something like that with this facilities assessment that we've got. Is it just, hey, as it comes up, we need to do it?
John, I'm sorry. It's
Yeah, John,
really,
it's
really
tough.
difficult to hear
We
you.
can't get you, bud.
I'm sorry. Figure out then.
No, we'll follow up. I think I was understanding the initial gist, and it's something that we can discuss. I don't think it has to be on this one, so
Okay.
we can definitely discuss it. No, it's fine. We'll find time to talk. Okay. I'm not seeing. I thought I saw Tom, but not now. So maybe it was answered. So Jeff, why don't we keep going?
okay. So, yeah, all right. So tying into what we were talking about with the academy, we obviously have issues with our rooftop units. We have issues with the roof. I touched upon the fact that we have issues with our building management systems in the academy, but as well as the other schools that the Siemens building management system touches upon. It's kind of funny here, but you're looking at two pictures of what the inside of one of the controllers looks like from the Siemens system. And I don't know about you, but the last time I had a phone like that in one of my houses, it was quite some time ago. So it gives you an idea of the age and the antiquity that we're dealing with here with our building management system. As I mentioned, I just noticed I got a discrepancy here, but the BMS system, the service and support on that was actually outdated since 2019, not 2021. And so right now we have 6 schools running off the Siemens BMS system. And we also have Johnson Controls building management systems in our town buildings. Both of these systems are extremely proprietary, and it results in us paying top dollar because we are locked in with Johnson Controls and Siemens to service these systems. So what we're proposing as part of a potential performance contract, alliteration aside, is the installation or integration of a new Tritium Niagara BMS platform across all town and school buildings that is not proprietary, and I can get competitive quotes for service across all these buildings. I can't speak to it enough how problematic it is, these systems are great when they're operating properly, and it gives us a lot of ability to log in remotely, program schedules and set points, and actually troubleshoot the system remotely if something comes up. But when they're failing the way most of ours are, it becomes extremely problematic to troubleshoot, address, and just adjust the comfort levels within the buildings. So this is a widespread issue across all of our town and school buildings that does need to be addressed. It was identified as a priority one in the SMMA report, certainly, and Tecton certainly identified it as a priority for the town as well. Tying it together, and the reason why it would be great to be able to put this in a performance contract, obviously from a procurement perspective, the fact that all of these buildings were identified in the original scope that we had in the IGA, it provides us a lot of flexibility to work with one installer, and it gives us also the opportunity that we can specifically hand pick the equipment. Whereas if we were to put this into a traditional 149 bid package, when you're dealing with a low bidder scenario, you can sometimes end up with inferior equipment, which is, we've ended up on the bad end of that in several instances in the past, where you just get inferior equipment, and then we're back to replacing it before the end of its life because it's that way. So the building management systems, we are working with a current vendor right now to get full pricing for what the replacement of a town-wide building management system is, and we should know more about what that pricing is in the upcoming weeks. We are aggressively working with them, and Beth Greenblatt from she's been working with us and the vendor to sort of refine our pricing at this point. So if you want to go to the next slide. The third and final project that could be included with this, amongst others, is the Cameron Senior Center HVAC. This has been a long-standing conversation since even before I started here with the town. There's a long, convoluted history as to why the project was derailed before. But needless to say, the conditions at the Cameron have not improved, and the HVAC system is still in desperate need of replacement. We've been able to get by the past few years by utilizing portable air conditioners in the building, but it's not sustainable. It's creating issues from us from an electrical standpoint in the building. And it's clear that we need to get this project done once and for all. To the point about the selectability of performance contract, what was installed in that building during the 2010 renovation is a Sanyo VRF system. And not too long after that project was completed, Sanyo basically got out of the HVAC business completely and out of the VRF business. So I would say 70% of the Sanyo equipment in the building right now is not working. So we've looked at this a couple different ways. We did work with the Clean Energy Committee a few years ago and Permanent Town Building Committee to try and come up with a design for the building that, sort of overachieved with the sustainability goals of the town. But after going out to bid and having the numbers come back 3 times the amount of what we originally spec'd, it's clear that we were trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and that particular type of system would not be ideal for this building. So we've been working with our vendor on the performance end to come up with a proposal for an in-kind replacement. VRF is still systems that people use everywhere in new buildings, old buildings, but the technology's gotten much better, and we'd be looking at replacing the failed Sanyo VRF system with a new either a Mitsubishi or a Carrier system, but we prefer the Mitsubishi product because they're an industry leader and they're not going anywhere. There'll always be service and support for that. So, we're looking to include the Cameron HVAC as part of a more robust performance contract. So we're hoping that once we have a little more clarity on that, what we'll be bringing before capital and eventually town meeting is a vote on a comprehensive performance contract that touches a lot of bases amongst town and school buildings. And I know that was a very convoluted explanation of the whole process, but there's a lot of inputs into this conversation at this point. So sounds like Mike's got.
Well, I do want to kind of expand a little bit on what Jeff covered. And give him a chance to take a little bit of a break. He's just going full bore on these things. But so the system that we are looking at is significantly more efficient than what is there now. One, because it would work. Two, because of the increased, the higher level of technology. But the biggest issue we've got in that building is we actually have two completely disconnected systems, the heating system and the VRF system that essentially fight each other and are not working on an integrated control system. So we would be able to gain significant efficiencies in operation and cost and energy usage by introducing a new BMS platform into that building. So Jeff, I don't think I heard you mention that piece, but from a sustainability standpoint, that's a huge consideration and one of the reasons that we think this fits in the town's goals for energy efficiency, but also it does get us a fully operational system for a much lower price point.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Mike. That is a huge part of the building issues. When they did the restoration in 2010, they did not integrate the two control systems together. So there have been instances where one of the controls is calling for heat while the other control is calling for cooling simultaneously. Obviously not a great setup for the building. So the HVAC renovation and replacement would include integrating a brand new building management system with the building and consolidating the controls so they're not fighting against each other.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that we're talking about doing these under a performance contract. And this is something that I think that generally the public is not super well versed on Massachusetts procurement laws. But outside of the energy legislation that is out there, we would have to procure the system on this building under Chapter 149, which at the price puts us into an owner's project manager. It puts us into a required architect or engineer to do an enormous amount of additional cost. We can't go like a private business and simply work with somebody to build us a system. Chapter 25A in the performance contract actually gives us that ability to approach this building like a design build, where we would work with the person actually installing to get everything right and not have all of those additional steps, all of those additional contracts, and all of those additional costs. That same concept applies across not only the potential for the roof at Westford Academy, but probably most importantly on the BMS across all school buildings and hopefully eventually town buildings as well, because there are a number of components that we have on those building systems that may be perfectly usable and be able to be integrated. And we would not have to really go through a massive amount of design processes to get us to functional systems. So there is a potential very strong advantage with looking at these things under a performance contract as opposed to under traditional Chapter 149 procurement. So just to put everything in context a little bit more, that's one of the reasons we're looking at that type of a procurement methodology.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
All right. Unless there's any other questions, group, I do need to move us along. We're going to run a little long. Tom, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to make one comment. I know I had a lot of questions for Jeff. I want to say that in speaking with Jeff, I completely understand he's really trying to catch up with all the deferred maintenance, and he is looking to have that plan going forward of how to keep us on track. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate that work that it takes to maintain as many buildings as we have. And really, he's still chasing the deferred maintenance that we as a town have kicked down the road for years. So these are a lot of asks at once, but it kind of goes back to our discussions about vehicles that when you start kicking them, they catch up. So I do
Thanks,
appreciate the work. So
yeah, it's a good comment, Jeff. We do very much appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you.
It was good. Thank you. Anybody else for Jeff before we continue?
Just thank you very much for all the presentations.
Okay.
Awesome. Great job today, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, group, we'll keep moving along. I know we are a little bit behind schedule, but we don't have too much to go through. So we'll move on quickly to the approval of the minutes from October 17th. Again, if you have any small nits and gnats, please send those in separately. But if you have any structural changes you'd like to discuss, now would be the time.
Yeah, I think they look pretty good.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, guys. I'll take a quick roll vote. I'm a yes. Dan?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tom W?
Yes.
John C?
Yes.
Tom L?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Dr. Chu?
Yes.
And Jared?
Yes.
Thank you, guys. We're gonna move on to the old business, and then our future meetings just is next Friday, I think, as everybody knows. But last piece of official business for us is the capital planning policy that was approved by the select board on September 23rd. So that was sent out to the group, read through. I don't know if there's questions. Want to make sure that you guys saw it, have the opportunity to ask as we need. Kristen, I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on regarding the policy, but I do want to note that it was shared with the committee this week.
There was just a clarification made based upon the text that you saw the first time, based upon a comment that was made at the select board meeting, I believe related to computers and cruisers. So there was a slight change there, but it doesn't reflect our current practice.
Okay, thanks. And it was, I did note the cruiser note at least in there as well. So, which has always been the case here. It's come up for questioning before, but it has been the case. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Kristen. Anybody else? Any other questions on the policy that was shared? All right. Any other old business or new that anybody feels they need to discuss before we adjourn? Jamie, go ahead.
I just wanted to double check, like, so next week's meeting is when we'll hear more presentations and then there'll be voting next week, or we have another meeting after that separately to vote? This may have been mentioned, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
No, it's a great question. Dan, what do we have on tap for next week's presentations?
So next week is basically prioritizing the requests we heard. We shouldn't hear any new requests next week.
No new ones coming? Okay.
Right,
Okay.
so that'll be our initial recommendation for the town manager budget that's being presented on December 9th. We usually meet in January to go back through and check any quotes, any changes in priority and whatnot, and then we can amend that plan then prior to town meeting. But this is just to get the initial numbers into the budget for next year.
So Dan, what's the timing on a straw person then to the group?
Well, I sent out the database that was out
Yep.
there that we're using, and that kind of sums up all the different potential funding sources at the bottom. So please give a look through that. If anybody has a question over the next week or before we go to vote, please reach out. I'm happy to talk about anything, but or about any of the funding sources. There's actually a second sheet that kind of showed the available funds that we have. And then the potential debt service impacts as well for some of the projects that were earmarked for bonding. Again, I know we have a lot of new people here. If anybody wants to have a discussion, please just reach out and we can schedule a time on that if you have any questions.
Yeah, so Jamie, to answer your question directly with all that with Dan, we will take an initial vote next week for an initial recommendation for Kristen prior to that December 9th meeting. And then there are updates that always come in, there's always changes and whatnot. So we do meet in January again to review, to look over any changes and to make a final recommendation before well in advance of the town meeting.
All right, thank you.
Make sense?
Yep,
You
definitely.
know? I know we've got a bunch of new members too, so if you guys have questions, like Dan said, bug him all you want, but bug me as well if you've got any questions. Dan is the first line of defense. He's better at handling questions than me. But you're always welcome to reach out. All right. I don't see anybody else's hands raised. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. I'll do the roll call real quick again. I'm a yes. Dan?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tom W?
Yes.
John C?
Yes.
Tom L?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Dr. Chu?
Yes.
And Jared?
Yes.
Awesome. We got through a lot today. It was a very good discussion. I appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully you guys all have a great weekend. and we'll
Yeah.
chat again in a week from now.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Take
All
care,
right,
Thank you very much,
everybody.
everyone. Have a great weekend.